Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. The other day I took a look at the Mario Kart version of Monopoly, and I have to admit that the Monopoly Gamer Mario Kart version does change the game enough to make it a little bit more palatable. It's a little bit more enjoyable because it just turned into a sort of frantic, crazy dice rolling game full of chaos, and you should just spend your time laughing at each other and the misfortunes that befall you and not worrying too much about it. But it's not a great game by any stretch of the imagination, and this got me thinking, are there any games based on video games, or older video games I guess, that are good fun? And it reminded me that I have in my collection of old and out of production games this little gem. It's Pac-Man, the family version of the arcade game. And I thought, what the heck, let's take a little look at it and see what we think. So here we have the board set up for a 4-player game. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking Pac-Man doesn't necessarily seem like the best idea for a multiplayer game. Pac-Man, he's a loner, it's him against the ghosts. The game gets around this, the board game gets around this, by basically not caring. It plays up to 4 players, and each player gets their own Pac-Man. We have yellow, red, green, and blue just off the top there. And further deviating from the tradition of the Pac-Man arcade game, there are only 2 ghosts. And yeah, every player is a Pac-Man, and every player gets to control the ghost. There is no player controlling the ghosts. I feel like it might have been, like, if it was a modern game, you kind of get the idea that maybe someone would have made it as a one against many type game with one person controlling the Pac-Man against the forces of the ghost players. But this is what we had at the time from good old MB Games. And as you can see, the Pac-Man, or the Pac-Men, the Pac-Mans, they've got holes in the top of their heads, and their jaws hang open like that. And that's because this game has a gimmick. I very much enjoy old games with gimmicks, and I think the Pac-Man game has a pretty decent gimmick. Each player will get a Pac-Man, which has a moving jaw like this. And there are marbles on the board, and in classic Pac-Man style, your aim is to munch all of the pellets that are on the board. And this is achieved by, as you move your playing piece, you've got a hole there, the jaw is opening like this, you place Pac-Man over the marble, and as if by magic, the marble is gone. That's pretty neat, right? In honesty, this is the main selling point of the game. The fact that Pac-Man actually eats the marbles. It's an incredibly straightforward game. The aim, obviously, to get the most marbles. There are actually white marbles and there are yellow power marbles. The yellow power marbles do not score, but they give you the option to eat the ghosts, just like in the arcade game. The way it works: on your turn, you roll 2 dice. Like so. 1 dice of your choice you use to control your Pac-Man. The other dice you use to control one of the ghosts of your choice. When Pac-Man moves, you want to try and get marbles, obviously. So, say I'm this yellow Pac-Man here. I'm a traditionalist. I would go 1. Eat it. 1. 2. 3. That's the end of my go. I now have 3 marbles in my Pac-Man. I have my little yellow tray. I've scored 3 points. My Pac-Man now languishes on that space waiting to be eaten by a ghost. I now get to choose 1 ghost and move it by the value of my other dice. In this case, 1. So I'm just going to move this yellow ghost over here. And that's the end of my turn. Play then moves around the board with players collecting marbles and yellow marbles. When you get a yellow marble, you acquire the Ghost Gobbler ability. And what that means is, when you're moving, if you land, if you touch a ghost, you can stop on that space, eat that marble. You can send the ghost back to its starting spot. You get to take 2 white marbles from any other player as a reward, but then you have to return a yellow power marble from your stash back onto a space of your choice on the board, one of the red circled spaces. And that's how eating the ghosts work. Of course, the other thing that can happen is the ghosts can eat you. When the ghosts are moving around, if they land on your space, womp, 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 you get sent back to your starting space, and you have to give 2 of your marbles to the player that was controlling the ghost at the time. So, you can see marbles will change hands as ghosts eat the Pac-Men, and as Pac-Man eats the ghosts, so marbles change hands. You will have yellow power marbles sometimes, but then once you've used them, they get returned to the board, so there's a nice little seesaw of power there. And the game continues until all of the white marbles have gone, and then you add up your totals, and the person with the most marbles is the winner. And that is it. So that's Pac-Man, the board game, the family version of the arcade game. Is it any good? Not really. It kind of is. It's got a cool nostalgic feel to it. This concept of the way that the Pac-Man can actually eat the marbles. If you get it right, if you land it on the marble properly, it's a neat little gimmick. It is a cool little gimmick. Sorry, I've got my Pac-Man's full of marbles. Excuse me. Yeah, it's a cool little gimmick, and it does work. That's neat. And yeah, it's got that nice little to and fro of, if you've got a yellow marble, you can eat a ghost on your turn and send it back and get marbles from other players. You can use the ghost to eat other players and get their marbles, so you can keep an eye on who's got the most marbles and gang up on them with the ghosts. And it looks quite nice. It's got that nice sort of Pac-Man style to it. It is what it is. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's alright for a few minutes of fun. If you get your Pac-Man slightly misaligned, you can end up firing marbles across the board and under the counter, never to be seen again. It is one of those games that any game that involves the use of spherical objects is always a problem in that regard, because things will roll off the table, they will go under the sofa, they will go behind the TV, and they will go into the dog's tummy at some point if you're not careful. But it's good for a laugh. It's showing its age a little bit, but it's fun enough. It's not something I would recommend anybody rush out and try and find a copy, unless they are particularly nostalgic for ye olde days of Pac-Man. And yeah, I do kind of wish that it adhered a little bit more to the theme, and only having the one Pac-Man and the 4 ghosts, rather than having different coloured Pac-Men roaming around the maze. But it does work as a competition, as a contest. There is something to think about. There are things to think about. There are points on the board where you can go off the edge of the board and come back on at a different side of the board. So there it has got that wraparound thing from the arcade game. It can get quite tense if you're getting hemmed in by other players, because especially in a 4-player game, after you've moved, there's going to be 3 ghost activations before you get back to you again, so that's a lot of opportunities for people to zap you. Although once you have been zapped once, you go back to your starting space and you are safe from that point on. They did think about that. It's not a case that you can keep being battered. You can't destroy the leader to that much of a degree. But yeah, that's it. It's okay. It's all right. It's a fun little old game in my collection. I hope you have enjoyed this little look. Do please leave your comments and queries below. Let me know what you thought, and I will do my best to answer any questions if I can. And, you know, do all that other stuff. Subscribe and like if you liked, I guess, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. I don't think Pac-Man sounds like that.